introducing us 6 panelists, the person of Dr. Bello Salihu, Chartered Engineer, Fellow Institute of Non-Destructive Testing, PCN Level 3, and Chief Technology Officer, Subsea Robotics. Let's put our hands together for Dr. Bello as he approaches. So I shall now hand over the microphone to our lead panelist for the conversation.
Thank you very much. Once again, good morning. I think it's afternoon. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. May I stand on, crave your indulgence to stand on the existing protocol already established. Fellow panelists, again, my name is Samuel Emedion. Coming from the industry side of things, and you have on the panel various expertise from the education sector, the practitioners, the technologists. I think just to help us make sense and mine the most part of the goodness. 2 paper presenters, coincidentally one is with us, so he can even throw more light on this. So listening to the role of NDT for safe operation of importance in that sector, and then we heard again about NDT education, the various power blocks. I think that was another decimal that came through for the activities that happened yesterday. I think one thing stood out for all of us, if you connect the dots, is the fact that there are gaps in the system as currently of the education in terms of the regulatory framework or the legislation. And so this panel, I want to think, will provide the insights, the needed insights to fill these gaps. So discussing perhaps curriculum limitation and the challenges of alignment with technology in NDT space currently, and to start it off maybe starting from the center engineer, Mrs. Rimona, who was my HOD a long time ago, in PTI. She may not remember. Okay, so maybe we kick start. Yes, please. Okay, so it happens many times, so it's just part of it. So maybe we kick start in that area. So from what we have gathered, we are not at ground zero. We are somewhere, but we are not where we want to be. There are some education around NDT currently going in Nigeria. What are those gaps and what are those limitations for actually scaling, if you like, the heights of NDT practice in Nigeria? Madam, maybe you have a go at that for 2 minutes so that this point can be fleshed out.
What I want to say, I'm in the academia. I think a field person will be able to really say that better. But from the educational point of view, in Nigeria, everybody wants to go to where it's happening. Everybody wants to go to where it's happening. We just, in Nigeria, these specialized courses are mostly done in the polytechnics. And we PTI have been doing welding, and we were looking at the fact that, okay, if we have to do an NDT, we should do it at the HND level, which is more or less like a specialization. After you've done the basics at the ND level, then you specialize in at the HND, and certification follows. Where it's difficult for people is the certification. Like I mentioned yesterday, the cost of certification is actually high. But if we can domesticate it, then the cost will be a bit able, and we should not rush to the top. Like having to go and get degrees and all that yet. We should start at the operator level, because that is what is killing the education in Nigeria. We now have top heavy. There's no more value for technicians who are the basic operators in the industry. Everybody wants to have, even if you have a degree, there's nothing stopping you from having the certification and be an operator. You are the operator. It does not remove anything from you. So basically, the gaps in the industry is that we need to get more Nigerians into that space, which are not there. Like he was saying, certificate, those that don't have this, the qualification that Nigerians have, they bring them in and they take up the jobs. Meanwhile, Nigerians that have those qualifications cannot get those jobs. So we need to, actually, this domestication can actually push us forward in the NDT space. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much, madam. I think you have done justice to it. I think it was deliberate to start from that point of institution that we have. At least the PTI has that. I think, Dr. Francis, maybe you would like to speak about what is the seeming hesitation or maybe limitation against this domestication of the NDT practice, entrenching it in our system. Like she has said, there is not much, there seems not to be a lot of patronage, a lot of Nigerians around that space interested to make it a local thing. People would have to go out there, those who are interested, and come back with the skill, and we keep having the power play as you rightly captured, between the Americans on the other hand and the Europeans or the British on one end. So what would you say from the industry perspective? What needs to be done? What are the missing ingredients in entrenching this? I think this is the question.
Okay, good afternoon everyone. I would like to give a sort of trajectory of myself, so we can appreciate where I'm coming from. Probably 32 years ago, I worked for an oil and gas firm. Maybe the very old ones here know it. It's called NISCO. NISCO was brought into Nigeria by British Offshore. Now, as a technical clerk, we had experts who were holding level 2 tickets from, Europe, the US, Paris. And these guys, I do not consider them that academically sound, because as a polytechnic ONE holder at that time, I could look at their reports and I could pick, basic technical reporting errors. And I thought, why are these guys being brought as experts? And then you have Nigerians who were ancient holders from the polytechnics, first degree holders, working as level 1 technicians, assisting these operators. And then I started to wonder, and which is why I decided to do my HND. Then I went to PTI because I thought an engineering background. Then I started seeing this gap, which we all know, and thought, all right, let me go to Univen, which is why today I also have a degree and have a PhD as well. Now, that said, I think the first challenge we have is a systemic problem. Yes. As a system, Nigerians do not like their own. That is the first challenge we have. Be it governance, be it regulations, or whatnot. That is the first challenge. Now, I've worked in Dubai, I worked in Holland, and I've worked in the UK. The way we treat our technicians, our engineers here, that is not the way foreigners treat their engineers. And which is one of the main reasons why I think INTT is the way to go. Creating that grassroots enforcement and empowerment so that we can recognize and train our own. Now, just to give a bit of coffee, it's unfortunate that Chibuzo is not here. Chibuzo is my colleague. Was an electrical engineer who came to Chevron, started
the papers of yesterday presented. Put them inside, please. He wants them now.
So that is the level it can get. I don't want to use that word degradation, but that is how low it can get. Now, in curriculums abroad, you have technical schools teaching people level 1 skills. Polytechnics handle level 2 skills. Then universities, you start having BSc or Peng in entity. That is the process. So our systems are not prepared for this balance. So you have graduates who are out of the university and they have maybe mechanical engineering, they have a welding degree from PTI, but this guy cannot perform a magnetic particle inspection. He cannot even identify what. So that is the nature. We have degrees, we have certificates. These guys come out, they don't know anything.
Thank you very much. I think you cap it for us, the gap between theoretical knowledge and the field practice. I think that is a challenge back into the education environment. So let's push a little bit more. The gentleman, Dr. Adet, I'm sorry I didn't get your name very well. Dr. Bello, yeah. Dr. Bello, again, I heard the summary of your paper yesterday. Unfortunately, I was not there personally to hear your paper. Good paper, by the way. In all of this, what has the government done so far? Is it enough? Are there things that needs to be done to sort of help bridge this gap or create the enabling environment that we would now build on when we approach the technology, the human capacity, and the investments? So considering all of this, bearing all of this behind your mind, have the government actually risen to the occasion already, or we are still having non-response? It's a difficult question to pose to you perhaps, but then could you just attempt this?
Okay, good afternoon. Good afternoon, my fellow panelists, and good afternoon, everybody. It will be a difficult question for a yes or a no answer. So let me just start by saying I may be the wrongest person on the panel to ask that question, because up until very, very recently, I've not practiced in Nigeria. I've made attempts as far back as 12 years ago to initiate or convince Koren to take NDT seriously. And I met the Koren chief then in London, and I had a one-on-one with him. And I followed it up with a very strongly worded email to him about how important NDT is to Nigeria. And I never got a reply. So that should tell you how much I think the government is taking this seriously. Okay. I have been a level 3 in 2 methods for over 10 years. So I'm in my 3rd renewal when I want to do it now. I've done 2 renewals of my level 3. I also have been involved with the practice of NDT. Most of my practice, like I mentioned, I have practiced outside Nigeria. Now, the reason I'm saying this is not to make any unnecessary references or points is this. In the British Institute of NDT, in which I'm a fellow, NDT training is mostly powered by vocational institutes, not universities. Okay. And the government invests a lot of money in apprenticeships. Anybody that has a company, from the IOCs to, like my friend Frank in Plus, anybody that has a capacity to take in young people, okay, we need to create a lot of chances for young people. We need to create a lot of chances for young people to get involved in the industry by bringing them in very fresh as vocational students or as apprentices in the industry. The issue about, what is the gap, what is the government doing? I think the first thing, instead of me to say this is what the government should do, or what is the government not doing or doing, let me start by following up on what Duaka Uchenna said in his very, very brilliant summation this morning. Okay, we are talking about ISO 9712. I've been a beneficiary, or interpretation may be a victim. I have been certified by ISO 9712. Both of my level 3 certifications are on ISO 9712. One, PCN, governed by British Institute of NDT. The other one is C-Suite, governed by TWR. Okay, I have been in that system long before I had any white hair. Okay, now the thing about that is that this, from the name, ISO 9712, International Standards Organization, and our own standard organization of Nigeria is a pseudo affiliate of this. Whatever standard is there under ISO can be domesticated in Nigeria legally and seamlessly by standard organization of Nigeria. I'm linked closely with what is happening in the CNG industry now, or CNG startup that we're trying to do now. And what SON has done is to domesticate a lot of the, at the last count, 87 standards, international standards, that have been domesticated in Nigeria just to support the CNG startups. Again, so we already are part of this system through the Standard Organization of Nigeria. If we are going to, continue on the path of what Institute of NDT Nigeria is doing, is brilliant, because PCN as is under the British Institute of NDT. There is an example to follow. Okay, so we can take, if you take the guiding documents, when you go to these courses, the first thing they give you is they give you this 12-page, 13-page guiding document that says, this is what you are expected to score, this is how we are to, if you have this level of experience, this is what waiver you get. They give you that guidance document. In that guidance document, you take one for C-Suite, you take one for PCN, they are absolutely similar. They're almost the same. Why? Because they are all based on they're all based on ISO 9712. So why can't we now in Nigeria, follow up with the Standard Organization of Nigeria, I mean the Institute of NDT, follow up with the Standard Organization of Nigeria to domesticate ISO 9712, whatever it is our own peculiarity, encapsulate it in what is applicable in Nigeria without deviating from that particular standard, and then we will have a standard to work with. I can understand the reluctance of companies, on the side of the companies, I can understand the reluctance of the companies to kind of trust the system if it is a wholly Nigerian system. Okay. Now, that is the challenge of Institute of NDT Nigeria. They have to be seen to be very, very rigorous. In his paper, Uchenna said, you get more respect in India if you have the Indian standard than you do if you have PCNOC. I wish when we start this, for the benefit of young people that are going to come into my profession, I wish we can make it more rigorous than BINDT does with PCN or than TWI did or is doing with CSRI. If we can make it that rigorous, such that you come to Nigeria with any certification whatsoever, and you have, be certified to work in Nigeria, you have to really sit for a paper that is even more difficult, than what you have done to pass whatever you passed in. Okay. Because without that rigor, we will end up with NDT. What we do ultimately, we are a safety business. Our decisions save lives or can kill. Okay, can destroy infrastructure. So whatever kind of rigor that we can apply to what we do, I don't think it's out of place. So this is not the bit I want to say about before now.
Ladies and gentlemen, another round of applause. I think you agree that it was
if I bring in the welding aspect, we have been in welding for more than 50 years itself. You can see proliferation of welding department because they are training. This year we were to do TWF were to do competition for welders, and we had to go to Yaba, as old as Yaba Polytechnic. Their welding department, I don't think they extract an act in that workshop. And what the NDT that's supposed to be moderating the technical education in Nigeria, what they do now, do you imagine when NDT wants to go for accreditation, schools will go to different schools to go and borrow equipment just to station in their place for them to be accredited. So the technical education that the government say we want technical education, nothing is being done. PTI does training in diving. 2 years ago when the MBT came, they came with a curriculum of ND for a diving training that they have to do semester 1, go to field for diving, and I say, how can you do so? It's a skills program. Diving is a skills program that we do in 6 months. They go to the river, go to Burutu to do sea diving. I say, madam, just something review. I say, no, it's not possible. So different people will just come up, this is what we want, and they approve it. So by the time you say, okay, the stepping stone, you have said the polytechnic train skills for level 2. So at the technical level in Nigeria, the government is not helping to achieve that technical goal. Thank you.
Thank you very much. A round of applause. You would agree with me that this is the time to say it as it is. There's no use dressing it up. We need to dismantle it, to build it again. So it is very important that we also diagnose the problem rightly and then profile reasonable solution to actually move things further from there. So I'd want to move to the gentleman builder. I didn't get your name very well. Abiodun Oyedele. Okay, Oyedele. Sorry, I didn't want to murder your name. I wanted to be very sure. So, I mean, this is coming to you for obvious reasons. As a builder, maybe people would want to also find this out. Are there current benefits that the building sector could really derive from NDT to stem the current tides of building collapse in Nigeria? What are the peculiar challenges that needs to be addressed so that these benefits could be fully harnessed in this sector?
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. There are a lot of benefits. I will be talking from the perspective from Lagos State material testing and Lagos State government in general. And I'll also be looking at the built environment. You know, when I heard about this conference, I was very happy because we do capacity building in Lagos State material testing from time to time. We bring in expatriates to train our personnel on non-destructive testing and all that. So I was like, oh, good. We're going to be bringing in our guys from this institute. Let us also collaborate and see how we can improve on non-destructive tests. Now, my advice now, I would like to advise, because as a builder, a registered builder, I've seen a lot when it comes to the built industry. You know, in the built industry, you have the architect, you have civil engineers, quantity surveyors, estate managers, and the rest. You know, and we are all specialized in one. We have something in common. And here in Nigeria, I see architects who want to perform the duty of a structural engineer. A builder wants to do the work of an architect. You know, if you're not a specialist in a particular profession, you can't get the best out of it. I have worked with some clients, and they'll be like, oh, can you please come up with a design? I will say, oh, I have a colleague, he's a good architect. I can introduce you to one. Because I know that training that you went through for 6 years, you know, I cannot get it, even though I did some architectural courses. Now for this institute, I want to advise, because I've been seeing things like regulations and boilers and vessel regulation. If you are regulating boilers and vessel regulation, how can you come to the built industry and say you still want to regulate when you are not a builder, a registered builder, or a registered civil engineer? Now, as a builder, I was taken through electrical services in building, mechanical services in building, air conditioning systems and all that. But even though I went through all those training, I won't see myself as a master in electrical services. I just have a knowledge of all these things. Maybe I should say systematic approach in all engineering services and other practices applied to physical assets. So, if we are going to be establishing this, putting it out into our tertiary institutions, it should be in branches. An estate manager needs NDT to sell his property to his client or to advise a client to buy a particular property. Because without the NDT, you cannot tell your client the structural integrity of that structure. Same with the QS. If he's carrying out a violation or a particular structure, he needs an NDT, aside from looking at it for, oh, it's only COI, It's looking very okay. What about the strength? I've also seen people who practice structural integrity tests in Nigeria that they are not called professionals in the built environment. How do you do your visual inspection? Even when you see those defects associated with the building, what do you know about the causes? How do you put remedies into tertiary branches, petroleum, NDT, or pipeline, whatever, building, whatever? Let everybody take their own position and train in respect to those professions. That's the way we can get the best out. So that's my take. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your submission. I think that was very enlightening. I would come to Engineer Ochi about the critical partnership that is needed. I say that because, as he has mentioned, in Train 7, where I was some time back, I've seen a number of companies whose name I won't mention for obvious reasons, come around and we are asking for a simple conformity test. And it sounds like rocket science, whereas these companies are companies that build massive structures around Lagos, yes, and the major cities in Nigeria. And they don't even, not only the ignorance around it, the resistance around doing those things, not seeing the need. And many times they are driven by experts, Lebanese, not to stereotype particular people. You have people from Middle East and Asian background. And this is the kick off this awareness, not just awareness on NDT, but also entrenching it to become a Nigerian thing, also, as you mentioned.
Okay, thank you very much. I think before I will go into your question, I want to address the last part of what the builder said. Because I need to make a clarification at this point so that we don't get the wrong impression out there. NDT is a profession that cuts across all engineering sectors. Whether it is materials testing, whether it is petrochemical, whether it is construction, it cuts across. Aviation, nuclear, just name it, power,
environmental sciences.
Everything. It goes across everything. Even medical science, entity goes across manufacturing and the rest of it. And that is why, if you look at the certification scheme, there are sectorial certification and there are also methods. You are not certified level 3 in NDT. It will be level 3 in a particular method. And even the method has a sector. Like, for instance, level 3, ASNT PCN, in the oil and gas sector. Somebody in aviation, for instance, my license as a level 3 UT does not empower me to practice in the aviation industry as a level 3. Even if we both have level 3s. That person in the aviation has another specialty in that sector that makes him competent to practice industry because it has different requirements. If I need to practice in the aviation industry as a level 3 UT, I need an additional endorsement in that sector. So there are some, you see, so when you see your certificate, it reads level 3 UT, and you see in bracket wealth, or you have a particular symbol. That symbol could be traced to the sector that are qualified to. Like those in the rail sector or construction could also be different. They will have a different designation. Though all of us will bear level 3. So I just want that clarification. And then for universities. Now, a lot of US especially are now running programs in NDT, degree programs. I'm privileged to study in the University of Northampton, and I have a degree in non-destructive testing from Northampton University. So, and I've also do a P in non-destructive testing, with also my specialty. So, universities, and that was why when I was making my presentation, I said there is now a prospect of now having NDT engineers, different from the level 1, level 2, level 3, which has been established and recognized worldwide. So as level 3, you are NDT specialists. And even that your specialist is narrowed down to a particular point. So I just think I should make that clarification. Now, coming to your question on the critical partnership. First, the government has done the first part, even though I think they should do further, and that is enabling us to have, within the boiler and pressure vessel regulation, a section that addresses the requirement to inspect boilers and pressure vessels. And that is Regulation 5, Subsection 5, which empowers the INDT to practice within that regulation as a body. So that's the first part. But you also know regulations are narrow. We want it to be an act. So which makes INDT able to look at the wider industry. Boilers and pressure vessels are critical. In fact, they are bomb. They are like time bomb. If you see where a boiler explodes, you understand when you say boiler is a time bomb. And that is why the government is not lying low on that. And they are being very critical about what goes in the inspection process and the requirements for inspecting a steam boiler and pressure vessel. So also the nuclear industry, it's a very critical industry. Also the building industry, very critical too. And that is why the Lagos State government has also found it fit to introduce NDT into the construction industry. So these are very critical things. But now the NDT that is there has to be clearly defined. And it needs to have its own certification following the same framework, level 1, level 2, level 3. Construction or building, whatever. So that makes that person an expert in NDT in that particular sector. So now, the other thing is for the government agencies that controls the industry to give appropriate accreditations and recognitions to INDT. We've made effort to speak with NUPRC and NMDPRA and NCDMB. Luckily, NCDMB, one of the directors was yesterday. And if NCDMB sneezes, the whole oil industry cash flow. In fact, NCDMB could summon the MDs of all the oil companies here if they wanted to be here today. In less than 3 hours, they'll all be here, they'll fly down. And so you can imagine if a government agency, they are asking for foreign certification. So that already gives the industry the leeway to do what I want, because the regulator is already asking for a certification. And sometimes you find a misplacement of what I'll call the right or categorization. Yes. For instance, if you go to the NUPRC guideline 2024, I'm talking the current guideline, they are saying if you have to practice NDT, you have to have ASNT certification. That's what it's there. And they say if you have to practice lifting equipment inspection, you have to have LEA certificate. Meanwhile, we have INDT recognized by the regulation of Nigeria. We have the lifted equipment inspection of Nigeria, recognized by Nigeria and Nigeria regulation is in Nigeria. But the regulator of that sector of industry is saying that we should get a foreign certification. So those are the kind of collaboration, recognition that INDT needs. And I need to address one more thing. And that is the issue of curriculum, because when Madam was talking, she made mention of, she was trying to speak to the curriculum. I would rather say what we have in Nigeria, our curriculum is obsolete and is in a confused state. The world has moved away from where we are now. If you look at most curricula, how they are structured so that you can achieve a particular skill set at the time you graduate. But our curriculum is such that it is still general. And so you graduate, you find somebody with BSc mechanical engineering, he's never heard about NDT. He knows nothing. When I was in school, as a marine engineer, my lecturer just mentioned NDT, that they do NDT on ships. And that was all. It was after I graduated, I now began to know what NDT really is. And I had to go outside the country to do NDT. So we have to restructure the whole process so that there must be a direction that at the time the person graduates is able to have acquired this skill set and be able to fit into the industry. So there must be a marriage between the industry and the academic. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Engineer. So we have spent a lot of time, and to just wrap it up, I would want us to take 1 minute each. Curriculum, skill gap, infrastructure gap, partnership, miscommunication or non-communication, as I mentioned. What is the way forward? How do we get out of here to where we want to be? 1 minute each. Maybe I start from Dr. Bello. Just 1 minute each.
Okay. I'll make it. I've made a few notes from what Madam and Uchenna said, but I'll just skim through that. Degrees in ND is all good, that Uchenna mentioned. It's all good to have paper qualification, academic paper qualification in NDT. But I assure you, countries we are referencing here, countries that have level 2, UT, or MPI, I can take him, throw him offshore, go somewhere to work, and go to bed and sleep. Because I know for him to have achieved that, he must have been trained, certified, able to take the task that certification, expects him to take. So let's disabuse our minds. It's all good to deepen our knowledge, go into the rabbit hole, and let's see where it takes us. The bottom line here is, if we are going to make this industry flourish in this country, let's emphasize paper qualification, a degree here or a degree. If you have a BSc or BE in mechanical engineering and you want to be an NDT operator, good luck to you. Go do that. But it shouldn't be a barrier of entry or to entry into that. I think that is very, very important. The other point I think is because access has not due to accreditations and due to no school will give you a level 2 if they are not accredited, yes. If they have not been accredited to give you a level 1 or level 2 or train you to be an NDT practitioner. And before they do that, an enabling law, instead of NDT Nigeria, cannot be the regulator or the trainer. It should be, in the UK, the Weldon Institute and the BINDT are what you call a chartered body. They are enabled by a charter law by the Queen of England or the King of England to do this. In the Nigerian sense, we need that linkage with the either Ministry of Labor or that gives Standard Organization of Nigeria tells us to domesticate, let's say, I gave the example of ISO 9712, to domesticate ISO 97. The moment you do that, and it becomes the law of the country, then NUPRC, as Uchenna mentioned, will have no choice but to obey the law of the land and ensure that they recognize the Nigerian certification above and beyond that of the other countries. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes.
Thank you, everyone. I agree with Dr. Averagely agree with Dr. Because even getting into the university, there's a criteria. You must have 5 credits, say this and that before you can study this and study that. So I want support so that we don't do a mistake or in certifying people to practice or personnel of NDT. So I would say they should have a basic knowledge in whatever area they want to specialize on. For example, project management as a master course in the university, say university, now there's a criteria before you can be admitted to do project management. Now, there's this client now that was actually looking for a project manager on a construction site, and after a month, he kept on sacking the project managers. Why? Because they don't have construction knowledge. It's a different thing for you to know this thing before you can actually manage it. There are two different things. So if we say it is just concerned with all the method of detecting or evaluating flaws in materials, if it's just that, any of this part of NDT, you should have a background knowledge of something before you now say, I want to be a personnel of NDT. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
What my last contribution is, so because you need to do a lot of reporting. So I agree with you. If you can't understand procedure and reporting, you cannot go into the NDT and be successful. So on the part of the government, we have to take our technical education very seriously. They should carry all professionals along when they are trying to a standard that we need to build into our educational system.
Thank you very much.
All right, perhaps where things are already gone wrong. It's like saying you cannot teach an old dog new tricks. So even in Korean, there's this kind of confusion where we as engineers have recognized that there is an inverted pyramid. Now the inverted pyramid is that other than if you think about
thank you very much. Very much.
Okay, thank you very much. I think I'll start from where Bidayodele left it. And he asked a question, he actually posed a question, that if NDT is just limited to detecting of defects, then you agree with what Dr. Bello said. I think I want to take it from there. NDT are far more than detecting of defects. And that is why the NDT certificate is a license. It's not a certificate. And that is why it can be withdrawn. If you err, if you have a degree, for instance, you have a BSc, if you err, the worst is that your employer will sack you. Your BSc will not be withdrawn. If you have an NDT license, it's a license, that's why you have to renew it every 5 years. And that you have to show competence. UT license to be recognized in the aviation industry. I have to do an 18-month training on airframes, engines, for me to be able to practice in that. So I will have first an airframe license, one, then I have my UT license. And my UT license will also be sectorial, specific to aviation. So because, and that has been, for me, a lot of methods, like there's now the infrared, microwave NDT. In fact, ASNT has already approved microwave NDT. It's a method now. There are so many methods that are still coming up. In fact, in the next 5 years, you might have an additional more than 10 methods that will brought on board. So, but those are done by researchers. Those are done by universities. Even in the UK, you find a lot of universities that are continually engaging in NDT research. They are also NDT research. They are different from the technicians and the specialists on the field. These ones are researchers. And so that's why I say the NDT is beyond just detection. And the major thing, in all these societies, they have a well structured system, educational system. They have the NVQ. Like in the UK, for instance, vocational qualification scheme. If you have level 12 of that scheme is equivalent to PhD. And they can marry these schemes. So, and for every training you do in UK, I've done so many certificates in the UK. I hold more than 20 licenses. A lot of them in the UK and the US. And I can really say this license is at this level. It's NVQ 3, NVQ 5. Like I have an appointed person's license in the UK. Even before you go for the program, appointed person, you know there's NVQ 5. And NVQ 5 is a diploma. So, and if you have an NVQ 8, it's a degree. So, because they have been able to marry these processes, a person that is having that does the vocational training does not see himself as less important than the person has gone to university. So the person is proud that I'm a registered plumber, I'm a registered mechanic. My grade is NVQ 5. But in Nigeria, the challenge in Nigeria is this. Nigeria, we have put so much emphasis on certificates and neglected the technician, and we have not given them any pride. Everybody has some degree of pride. And so, because the system has not recognized them, they are not able to place themselves and know where they belong. And so they are disregarded. And that is a challenge that must be addressed in this country.
Thank you very much.
All this in place. Just one more thing, very important. Now, because we must also know the role of some NIS and NIS. There's also a confusion, and I need to correct this. SOM is the standards organization of Nigeria. NIS is the Nigerian Institute of Standards. NIS actually is the one that should be making the standard, writing the standards. Just as we have ANSI, like we have BS, the British standards. They write the standards. Some only regulates based on the standard written by NIS. But NINAS, which is the Nigerian National Accreditation System, is like is UCAS, like UCAS, is the accreditation body. And NINAS is now a member of IAF, which is International Accreditation Forum. Because you see, one of the reasons most of the trainings we do, so we do in country, is not recognized outside Nigeria is because we are not affiliated by the International Accreditation Forum. This accreditation forum is up there. It regulates all the accreditation bodies in the world. UCAS is a member, ANSI is a member, and all the accreditation bodies are all members of. So NINAS is a member, but NINAS is not yet accredited. That is a challenge. NINAS is just a member. There are about, I think, 85 members, and you have about 65 accredited. And Nigeria and Africa does not have any. accredited, unfortunately. And so, if for any program that we need that international accreditation, it must be accredited by a body that is an accredited member of IAF, which is International Accreditation Forum. And that is how the government should address it. Thank you. I just have to
Yeah, thank you. And
I need to come back.
Just
very briefly.
in 30 seconds, please.
Very briefly. I think the issue of who needs or what do NDT practitioners need to know. When I spoke about accreditation and being a level 1 or level 2 or level 3 going to do what you do, we have NDT practitioners that work in the field here. Which one of us ever goes to the client and says, I found a defect on this, I've done a test, I found a defect, and the client says, okay, what do you want me to do about it? And then you have an answer for them. That is not your business. Your role at that level of practice, you've been taught, you've gone through the scheme, you've gone through the examination to learn how to operate a machine, how to work according to instructions, operate the machine, find the defect, give the report to the client. It's the client's business what they do with it. You are from Shell. You will agree with me. So I think in answering what I said about democratization of the knowledge through accreditation,
my NDTs are no certificate are no longer valid. I don't renew them. I don't care because I don't go to the field to do that. And you were talking about NDT engineer. Maybe I should mention that I also manage quality on the Bonga North UFR. I should say soft projects, soft meaning subsea, flow lines, umbilicals, riser, and what is it again? Riser systems. So we have on the project an NDT engineer is not certified by a scheme, but he has a level 3, but he is also an engineer that is a Frenchman seated in our office somewhere. And the role of this guy is to contribute to the detailed design as touching NDT methods that are appropriate to the level of the scrutiny or the criticality of the equipment we want or the anticipated defect that we expect. So there are levels and cadre, and everybody in that family is welcome. Just like a level 1 has its limit, a level 2 does, a level 3 does. At the level of management and decisions, like you said, about what is to be done to this defect. There are material people, there are people that come with certain perspective. I tell you a practical example. Once we had an issue, we had a false indication that arose from one of the conventional, non-conventional NDT methods, the advanced methods. It was a false indication, but it presented as though it was a defect. So when this was captured and then it came back on, and we look at the indicator and all of that, and the material, we went back to the manufacturing processes and all of that, we discovered that a heat treatment method that was attached, administered to the material is capable of producing that indication or those dispersed rays with that method. So with that, we concluded to make some samples to go through. We are talking about NDT, but there is destructive test, right? So we do NDT because we cannot afford economically to destroy the material because of what use would it be. So we did a destructive test with some samples, and we concluded that it was a false indication. And it was later proven because we wrote to certain bodies that false, the equipment manufacturer rather, that could indicate as a false indication in the method. So again, everybody is welcome in that space, whether you are just a basic NDT operator, you are level 2, level 3, managerial level or engineering level. All of that is welcome. So I would want to take 2 or 3 contribution or question from the audience, but it has to be very brief so that we maximize our time. So we would have, okay, so I have the first 4 hands that are up here. So please, can you administer the mic? Yes, let's start with Dr.
The class and learn, regardless of the level of equations and mathematical this and that. The focus is this skill, and once it can cope with that and deliver, will be acceptable. It is also expedient that NDT be part of all engineering graduate curriculum. I used to interact with NDT, all basic NDT methods at my undergraduate days, and that was what, welding and NDT, and by providence in my employment too, I had to interact with that. So I had that opportunity and privilege. But it suffices to say that, yeah, even as an institute, we've taken that up, and thank God we have Korean well represented here. The president is here with us. We've taken that later on. So these are some things. Undergraduate and graduate studies, it should be mandatory. It should be mandatory. Minimally, you must be able to communicate with other professionals what NDT is all about. And of course, mention has been made of NSQ. TVET, where we have opportunity now. Privileged to be a member of the committee on TVET that's looking at how vocational training policies and systems will be better. The water is more than the Gary, that's why we are not feeling the effect, but a lot is going on. I'm privileged to be in that area of engineering in Nigeria. So with this, I'm sure that if we have accreditation systems too, accreditation systems on the platform, not just in-house, on the platform of international accreditation forum, then whatever we are doing will be seen as being acceptable. And of course, the underwriters, the investors will be able to key into it. That's why some of the researches are still, or methods accreditation stage before it is accepted, and then we can then take it as one of those methods that we can take on as industry practices. So a lot of things have to, all the stakeholders have to key into it.
That was the president's privilege. Everybody else, please, let's keep to the time.
I also want to thank INDT for this platform. I also want to thank the...
Sorry, just to mention, don't be offended. When you rise, just give your name and go straight to the question.
Okay, my name is Igwe Bright from the Petroleum Training Institute. I just want to elaborate something concerning training and education in NDT. On training, I agree with you that you may not need the conventional education system to practice theories and developing OEM, which is a very high need. We need NDT education. And as I'm talking to you, there are a lot of schools, both in India, that does masters in NDT, and NIIT India does masters in NDT. So what we are looking at is having a program in the university, in the polytechnics, where you can do NDT degree, so that you can start producing in-country OEM to enable us go beyond.
Let's go ahead, your name. Let's go ahead, your name, and then go straight to better contribution.
My name is Engineer Akideji Moses. I'm from the Ministry of Transportation. I'm a Deputy Director. And incidentally, I started my career at the Lagos State Material Testing Laboratory. And I want to say that yesterday was crucial. In fact, this is the first time I'm coming around with this kind of training of NDT. And what I want to say is that I notice, I don't want to say capacity, because when I was at the Lagos State Ministry of Material Testing, I discovered that we were encouraging people to come bring their materials, the people in the construction world, bring your materials for testing, and they were eager to come. They were giving minimal, charges, and they were happy. It was even at that time when we have that serious spate in collapse building, especially in Lagos Island. What I want to say is that it was at that time we were assigned to go and start to carry out the NDT. But the question that I want to ask is that at what phase or level is it critical to apply NDT? Because what I noticed is that it is only when an incident has happened that they will now deploy you. But is it during construction?
Okay, thank you, sir. Sorry, sir, to cut you. We've gotten your question, and I want our fellow gentleman to just deal with the question immediately. Quickly, please.
Thank you very much for the question. At every point in time, when talking about a building or a civil engineering structure, you need either as they need it. I can't say I want to buy a property now without the NDT report, but whatever I'm buying, so I'm on my own if I buy without the report. But I think people need to be encouraged, and there should be a lot of publicity on NDT, at every stage. I don't think there's a particular stage that you don't need an NDT. I don't think so. You need to keep checking. It's a quality control check.
Connecting the rebar to the certificate, we need to start the testing with the rebar. And usually we do three kinds of tests for those: the chemical analysis, we do the destructive test, mechanical test for those rebar. We need to do the sample source test for the aggregates. So from the point of the aggregate, we sample it and obtain the source. We need to qualify the batching plant. If you are batching the concrete, we need to qualify it. Test that needs to be done. So like I said, there is test before, during, and after. It's one of those concrete batching is one of those special methods, just like welding is a special method, for which at the end you cannot just test. Okay, thank you. Then please, I think there are two hands here, and then we can go.
Discussion. There is this question that we want to find out. There's no gainsaying the fact that there is a gap which has to be identified by the panelists, and that has to do with our educational structure. Now, my question is, how best can this gap regarding to dichotomy in our educational certifications can be addressed relating to NDT?
Maybe when you were Madam Erimon, I would also.
Okay. The gap you're talking about, when I mentioned Francis' presentation, which I mentioned is a Boeing. Boeing has over 5,000 personnel. Is it Boeing, right? Boeing has over 5,000 personnel, but they only have 3 or 5 level 3s. All the other ones are levels below. So, did it ever occur to you, why would so many young people in Nigeria unemployed have to be a mechanical engineer? Have to be a mechanical engineer. Okay, Nigeria is the only country where my former employer was more than 20 years ago. I left them. NNPC is the only company I know that fills refineries with engineers. What you need in refineries are technicians.
the certificate that used to be issued by labor, trade test that was bastardized. You just go there, you can get the trade test certificate without being tested. So this thing that the government has brought, if where the different skill set we have qualification, because you go to a mechanic workshop, you don't have mechanics any longer. All the youths want to.
I believe when you were answering the gentleman's question, I felt you missed something when he was talking about at what point. I believe he was making reference to when you